Raise your hand. Try to locate it for you. There's one here, there's a couple in the back, in this section. There's one in this. Raise your hand if you have an empty seat. Okay. I think we're set for now. Thank you. A little housekeeping reminder, besides silencing our cell phones. There is a November 1st deadline for dues. If you know of anyone who hasn't paid their dues or may have forgotten, please remind them about that. November 1st is next week. Good morning, ladies and yes.
Good morning.
Thank you, Deborah. This last week's video and narrative is now available on our WNC website. I have a sign out near the sign-in book. Hopefully, all programs will continue to be recorded without any further issues, so that these can be viewed by any of those who aren't here, or if you want to see it again. At this time, I'd like to thank Andrea, Joanne, and Sue Williams for their continued effort in our recording and sound programs. It's already October 22nd. This month is quickly coming to its grand conclusion on All Hallows Eve week, which we call Halloween normally. As A.A. Milne once stated in Winnie the Pooh, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is a gift. That's why we call it the present. I'd like to once again thank Jennifer Boulanger for the beautiful tropical floral display last week, along with the many detective items that she brought and our Hawaiian lace that she carefully placed around us. Today's arrangement is brought by, I'm not sure who brought that. Nan Fremer, and it reflects the beautiful sunflowers that we always see at this time of year. Thank you, Nan. Kathy Kenya brought us John Swan last week, who shared an intriguing insight into the development of Charlie Chan and his author. John Swan was a true delight. At this time, Dutch is going to read the minutes of last week's meeting. And she's so enthusiastic about that.
Good morning, all you beautiful ladies. Good morning. Mr. Vicente. As I'm sure you're aware, this time of year you see signs all over the place for get your flu shot, get your pneumonia shot, get your COVID shot, which reminds me of a little story. This husband walked into the kitchen and he said to his wife, "You're negative." And she turned around to him and said, "Well, you're lazy, you're arrogant, and I don't know why I put up with you." Because I was just talking about your COVID test. So, anyway, here are the minutes from last week, October 15th. President Joan Lemry called the meeting to order at 10:30 a.m. at the Beaches Band. She thanked drama chair Debbie Nislinsky for bringing Broadway Theater League director Danielle Padula and her informative program to our meeting on October 8th. She also reported that she has received a thank you note from Kim Nethaway for the flowers and gift card. Secretary Linda Alvarez read the minutes from the October 8th, 2025 meeting. With no additions or corrections, a motion to accept was made by Marge Palmer and seconded by Linda Davis. Motion passed with all in favor. Kathy Kenya, Literature Chair, then introduced today's speaker, John L. Swan, in his program entitled Death, I Said, The Charlie Chan Mystery, which is his first book in the Charlie Chan Mystery series that continues with his book, The Tangled String. John has had a very professional background, ranging from a broadcast journalist, freelancer, and chief of staff to the president of SUNY Ed. His interest in Charlie Chan developed at a very young age, along with a later desire to learn more about the character created by author Burl Biggers, who wrote 6 books. John's goal was to write Biggers' 7th novel, and the goal was accomplished. He also provided the membership with an interesting history of other authors, such as Edgar Allan Poe and Arthur Conan Doyle, who addressed the issue of using Chinese detectives in their writings. John ended his presentation by fielding many questions from the membership, which provided a clearer picture of the very complex task of writing a novel. President Lombard then thanked John and his associate Nick Burns for a great program and said that her interest in Charlie Chan has definitely been piqued. John's books are available for purchase after the meeting for those interested members. She also reminded the group that next week's program is a guest privilege and will feature County Executive Anthony Picente. A motion to adjourn at 11:30 a.m. was made by Marge Trudeau and seconded by Linda Berry. Motion carried. Respectfully submitted, Linda Alvarez, Secretary. Nervous.
Thank you, Judge, and thank you for the lovely introduction joke. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Can I have a motion to accept the minutes as read? Sheila Murphy. Second to the motion? Karen Waters. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. At this time, Sheila Waters is going to introduce new members. Sheila?
Good morning. We're going to have Jennifer Evans introduce. I know. Is that better? No?
Yes.
Jennifer Evans is going to introduce Loretta practicing.
Good morning. Phyllis Sansone and myself, Jennifer Evans, we've known Loretta Lepowski for quite a while. She's a trustee at Big Moose Chapel in the Adirondacks, and that's how we've gotten to know her. But she has quite an interesting life. She was raised in a large family on a dairy farm in Lewis County and has always had a love for animals, children, produce, and our beautiful countryside. She attended South Lewis High School, has a BA in Sociology, magna cum laude, from SUNY Oswego. She also has a master's in social work from the University of Kentucky in Lexington and was awarded Alpha Delta Mu, a social work honorary. She then worked at the Lewis County Mental Health Clinic for 15 years. She then got her MST, or elementary education, and worked as a substitute teacher in Lewis County at South Lewis and Lowville. Now, she also has studied fine arts after all of this, too, and that's how I know her a little better. She has studied at the View in Munson and was awarded a community arts grant at the Tug Hill Tomorrowland Trust. And she did a show of her paintings called Celebrating Family Farms on the Tug Hill region. And that had over 30 places where she had her show. And I saw it at the Old Forge Library. She then did a fascinating project called Venerable Folks of the Tug Hill, which was sponsored by the Tug Hill Commission, Tug Hill Tomorrowland Trust, and Tawny, Traditional Arts of Upstate New York. It was a multimedia traveling art show with 22 portraits, interviews, bios, and photos with 30 public venues. She is married to a very famous man that we met last year, Peter Ostrom, who was the child star in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And he was a large animal vet in Lewis County and is now involved in dairy management
services there. She had 2 children and is now a grandma. And one of her duties as a wife is to be part of Peter's pit crew for the 90-miler canoe race. I guess he does that every year. And she's won quite a few awards: Tug Hill Sage Award, North Country Heritage Award, Evergreen Award, Watercolor Society. And she has exhibited at View, Dodge Pratt, Old Forge Library, and other venues. So I'm proud to have her be a member with us today.
Chocolate? Thank you. Carol Manuel here. She was coming today. We'll do her next week. And that's it for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. A couple of years ago, I had the privilege of seeing this woman at Hamilton College on the Disaster series. Condoleezza Rice once said, "There is no greater challenge and there is no greater honor than to be in public service." Cindy Del Piano will introduce our speaker. Cindy?
Before I begin, after listening to our new member's resume, I find it hard that you let me belong to this school. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Let me begin. Anthony. Whoa, okay. Sorry? That's what we didn't want to do. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Anthony J. Picenti Jr. is the 13th Oneida County Executive, the longest serving in the county's history, and is currently the longest serving county executive in New York State. He was appointed to the position on January 1st, 2007, and was then elected to full 4-year terms in 2007, 2011, 2015, 2019, and 2023. Mr. Picenti was named Regional Director of Empire State Development, ESD, in 2001, and 2 years later was promoted to ESD Vice President, a position he held until 2006. He is a past president of the New York State Association of Counties, as well as a former president of the New York State Association of County Executives. During his tenure as Oneida County Executive, Mr. Picenti has improved the county's financial outlook and credit rating. He has also been a statewide leader in consolidation efforts and initiatives. Through those efforts, he has been able to keep taxes in line his entire tenure, while increasing the efficiency and effectiveness of services his county government provides. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could do that nationally? He has focused on advancing economic development in the county in such high-tech areas as nanotechnology, cybersecurity, unmanned aerial systems, quantum computing, and artificial intelligence. This includes establishing Griffiths International Airport as the Northeast United States only FAA-designed UAS test site, Sky Dome, the nation's largest indoor drone testing site, and Innovair Advancement Center. If everybody remembers, we went on a field trip last year, which fosters collaboration in high-tech fields with the U.S. Air Force and private sector. Mr. Picenti secured funding that led to the renaissance of Adirondack Bank Center at the Utica Memorial Auditorium, which is now home to the AHL's Utica Comets and the MASAL's Utica City Football Club. Has everybody had a chance to go to the Adirondacks and Nexus Center? Oh my God, beautiful. He also created Vision 2020 initiative, bringing together stakeholders from across Oneida County for promoting job opportunities as well as education, training, and housing alternatives. Vision 2020 has now expanded to deal with transportation issues, including connectivity, alternatives to automobile and access. Mr. Crescenti was instrumental in the state and the county's reaching of a historic agreement in 2013 with the Oneida County Indian Nation. He was the leader in the establishment of the Mohawk Valley Systems Wind Hospital, the first new hospital built in New York State in decades, and constructed a new county parking garage to accompany it in downtown Utica's growth. He spearheaded the county's funded Utica University Nexus Center, a youth sports tournament and training facility that brings in hundreds of thousands of visitors per year and it hosted international sporting events. Let me stop 1 minute. When you bring in hundreds of thousands of people into this area, what else do you bring in? Money, a lot of it. Hotels, restaurants, gas stations, drugstores. Man, what am I, a campaign manager? Led the development of Marshall Management Center, which is now home to Wolfspeed's first, largest, and only 200mm silicon carbide fabrication facility, boy, that's a lot, in the world, and the county's Triangle site at Griffiths International Airport, which will soon be home to Chobani's new dairy processing plant, the largest ever investment in a natural foods production facility in the United States. Mr. Crescenti attended Utica Public Schools, holds an associate degree from Mohawk Valley Community College, and a bachelor's degree from Utica College. Tony lives in Rome with his beautiful, lovely, intelligent, wonderful wife, Eleanor Griffo Crescenti. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Anthony J. Crescenti, Jr.
Well, after that, I really don't have anything to say. But I'll start by, first of all, thanking you for allowing me this opportunity to Wednesday morning club. It's the first time I've been able to speak here, and I want to thank Cindy, my good friend, and I joke with Cindy all the time because she has worked for every elected official in the county except me. So I think that's why she's trying to get me up here. But I want to thank Joan, I want to thank the entire group for allowing me the opportunity today, and it's tough to follow. I can agree with Cindy. It's like, so the resume to follow Peter Ostrom's wife, but that's a little difficult. And to follow my good friend John Swan, who was here a week ago. John and I are friends for 40 plus years. A very great guy. So I have to nudge him a little bit and see who did better. But Cindy was very kind in her introduction going through all of that. And yes, I stand up here as the county executive for the last 18 years, the longest serving in the county and currently is the longest serving in the state. And, I look at that as, this was something I always wanted to do in terms of my career in government. I spent my entire career in government, but I always loved county government. That's where I started. I went over to the state for a while. And then, when Joe Griffo, who was county executive, ran for the Senate, that opened up a seat, and I just kind of jumped at that opportunity. And, I'm very proud of it and proud of what we have accomplished. And I thought today I would talk a little bit more about some of those things that obviously Cindy outlined, but really about a little bit more about what Oneida County is all about and what I see the future of Oneida County in being. We have embarked upon a lot of different things, especially over the last 10 years. And it took a while to get here because we had a lot of challenges. And for those of you who own Women's Club, you know what we've challenged. You know the challenges of the 1990s. The loss of Griffiths Air Force Base, the near loss of Rome Lab, the challenges lost in the county of companies like Lockheed Martin, General Electric, the precursor to that, Chicago Pneumatic, Sperry Univac, so many other companies that either dissolved or went south. And, you know, the challenges that we had to face in the late 90s and into the early 2000s and fighting another BRAC in 2005 was another challenge that this entire community had to take on. And, you know, there seemed to be some dark days, and were we ever going to, you know, have that rebirth and move the needle in our favor again. And I think the last 20 years have really done that. And it's not because that's my time in office with everybody, because it's not one individual, it's not one entity, it's not one person, it's a collaboration of business and community and partners and people that care about this, greatly about this county and what it should look like. And that was the other thing when I took office. One of the things I wanted to make sure, and I was committed to doing, was to make county government that leader and to be relevant in that growth. Now that's not a knock on my predecessors, that's not a knock on the system. It's what I believe should have happened and should be the case. County government is the largest government in the county, obviously. We have 26 towns, and we're unique in Oneida County, different than any other county in New York State. We have 26 towns. We have 17 villages. We had 19 when I started office. 2 of them have dissolved since then, and we have 3 cities. You know, we have the city of Rome, obviously. We have the city of Utica. We have the city of Sherrill, which is the smallest city in New York State, and sometimes gets lost in that shuffle a little bit, but it is a city. And that's a unique scenario, because in that you have 26 town governments, 17 village governments, 3 city governments, numerous districts of lighting and fire and highway and other pieces. But at the end of it, and at the beginning of it, at the top of it, is county government. And in all of those areas, with all due respect and with everything, they often look to county government to help them. And if we're not strong, if we're not solid enough in that ability, then they fail, or we fail. And I couldn't see that happening. So I wanted to make sure that county government was more relevant. And how do we do that? You know, there were a lot of different accomplishments that Cindy touched on, and I'm proud of working with so many to get them done. The first one, though, the one main piece that I'm most proud of, was that I was able to get this county on sound financial setting. When I took office in 2007, and again, tough times, you know, the economy was starting to feel that blip. There was only about $7 million in the bank. Now, for a county government at that time, there was about a $300+ million operating budget. It's not a lot of money. It's a lot of money for anybody to have, but it's not a lot of money for anybody. And I know there are many business people in this audience understand having money in the bank, having cash flow, being able to pay bills, being able to meet expenses and payroll and all that. And so my first goal was I need to right the financial ship. I need to get back on track. We need to get this house in order. And so we did a lot of things. We did some efficiencies. We looked at other funding streams. We worked hard to make it a better place. And fast forward to this last year, and that fund balance sits at about $92 million. Now, what do you do with that? Some would say, okay, that is the people's money, and it is. But it's our ability with that then to invest in the community, to work with our partners, whether it's in the healthcare system, whether it's in the recovery system, whether it's in the infrastructure of this community in various ways, but whether it's also to invest in areas of economic development, education, growth, so that our children, your grandchildren, and future generations stay in Oneida County and have the opportunities that we had or that were presented many years ago. And that's happened. That's happened with companies like Wolfspeed. It's happened with things like Innovari at Griffiths that you mentioned, and I'm glad that you got a tour of that, because that was another piece that was essential to our growth. Because if you recall, I mean, Griffiths was, the economic engine for so many years, and then it wasn't. And now it is again in many ways. Not entirely, because we know we can't put all our eggs in one basket, but the rebirth of what had taken place there over the years, and some of that I had the pleasure of doing with people like Joe Griffo, like Rowan DeStito, like Ray Meyer, like Sherry Bowler, other people that were around and were a part of it. But rebuilding an economy is not an easy thing to do, especially when you have challenges from the state government and from the federal government. I mean, we'll talk after about what's happening today, but we'll leave that on the side for a moment. But what we redeveloped and what we built was in Griffiths in Rome a business and technology park. But it's more than that. It's a place where education takes place on different types of levels. But it's also where, in the future, I hope to do more things. In my recent State of the County, I talked about some of the things that we're looking at, that play off of what has worked in this county. We are a tourism county. And, this county, thanks in large part to the Oneida Indian Nation, has a larger tourism attraction than the second largest tourism attraction in New York State, next to New York City. Think about that for a minute. That's a fact. That's not made up. That's billions of dollars in spending that takes place in this region. It's not all at Turning Stone. They have a lot to do with it. We have a lot to do with it too. When we talk about the Adirondack Bank Center, we talk about Nexus, we talk about, we can talk about all the other pieces that we have here, the great golf courses, the great clubs, the Adirondacks, the lakes, all the other attractions. But we also started investing in that in a different way. The Nexus Center that Cindy referred to does bring hundreds of thousands of people a year. We are booked every weekend at that event, with the exception of Christmas and New Year's. Or actually, I don't know if New Year's is back on again. But Christmas, I know for sure. Every weekend, 4 days sometimes a weekend. And then other things happening during the week. What I want to do in return is, in looking at Griffiths, if you've seen the big hangars that are up there, and you were at Innovari. Innovari is a hangar. That's where Skydome is, the largest indoor test site in the United States. There, where Innovari is, that's one of the old hangars. That was the original command center for Griffiths. One next door is Building 101, which still houses part of Rome Lab. But we've had some failures in terms of aviation industry. And one of the things I've learned and tried not to do is repeat, whether they're mistakes or whether they're just things that didn't work. And sometimes you go back and things work again another time, and sometimes they don't. I don't think aviation works here to the point that we were investing in before. I think UAS does, uncrewed aircraft systems, drones. I mean, that's what Skydome, when you saw that, is. I think that works. But I also think we have an opportunity, especially with Chobani now, as a partner and as a neighbor, that those hangars, and my vision for that is to create a second Nexus here in Rome, New York. An area that would, if you look at those hangars, we're talking, each one is 65,000 square feet each, with ceilings 125 to 150 foot high. I believe that could be the next recreation center for tournaments in Rome. Similar to Nexus, except noise. In which basketball, pickleball, volleyball, baseball, softball, everything can be done inside here. We've currently got estimates out looking at what that would look like. I think that's the next step in really adding to the tourism attraction of what this entire county can be, but more importantly about what is happening in youth sports, adult sports. Another facility that can really mirror Nexus on the opposite side, in both cities complementing each other in what hockey and soccer over there, basketball, pickleball, other things over here, tournaments. I mean, I think that's another piece, and that goes back to my point of making those investments that we're able to do. And I'll talk about Chobani in a minute, but I also want to talk about, because we touched on Wynn House. Wynn was an important piece, and so was Rome Health. And likewise, what we invested in Wynn, we invested in Rome. We did the maternity surgical center with our American Rescue Act funding. We contributed more towards the surgical center, and we continue to work with them to grow that, because without a strong health system on each end of the county, this county is big. It's not big in population as others, but it's big in area. And when you look at a map and you look at New York State and you look at the size of Oneida County and how long it takes to get from one end to the other, and believe me, I know, I've been there many, many times. It is a big county with a lot of area that needs to cover, and that's why 2 healthcare systems are essential. You keep one on the western side, one on the eastern side, and serving also the surrounding areas. So I think when we look at all that, we look at the ability of doing those things. That doesn't happen if we can't invest, if we're not strong enough. In addition, the bigger job is running county government. And I don't mean to put that on the back burner, because that's my first role. My first role is making sure that 2 things are always in check: public health, public safety. I think we showed a lot of that during the pandemic, when we had to take the lead in so many things that were happening, but also in public safety. Our upgraded 911 system. I mean, there are 25 different departments in county government that deal with so many aspects of people's lives. And sometimes it gets overlooked. There's a public health department, there's a mental health department, there's an office of family and community services. There is the Veterans Agency, there is the Youth Bureau, there is the various offices, Office for the Aging, all of the other functions, in addition to, even though they are elected, the sheriff, the district attorney, the county clerk, the county controller, those are all part of what we do on a daily basis. So operating that, and I'm kind of the overseer of all those budgets. And they're elected independently, but county government is a major business in terms of what we do on a daily basis and how many people we help on a daily basis. And I don't want that to get lost, because we can talk about the economic development piece and we'll get back to that. But I want to talk about how many people are helped daily. Hundreds of people, whether it's in our Utica office, whether it's in our Rome office, whether it's out in the towns or villages that we serve. Hundreds of people come to us every day. They come to us for assistance, they come to us in emergencies, they come to us for anything else that seems to be a part of their lives that needs fixing, or that needs help, or that needs direction. And I think that's another piece. To make us relevant again meant we had to be a better system. We've invested in our buildings to make them more efficient. We've invested in our people to make them more efficient. We still have a little work to do in Rome, because there was a little thing called the tornado that happened last year and kind of knocked a couple of our buildings for a loop. So we're still working on that. But once we get that done, that system will be in place. And there's the courts, and there's the other offices that serve people that hundreds of people a day. Brought some samples of what we do from our health department, from our mental health department, from other agencies, just to give us a taste of what we're doing. But we have challenges like every other community. We have challenges on the health side. We have challenges on the governmental side. We have challenges on health or addiction. We're seeing those numbers. We talk about them often. We are making progress. Opiate numbers are going down. Opiate deaths are down. Last year, at this time, we had some 50 deaths relative to opiate overdoses. We're down to like about 20. We're making strides with more street engagement with people. Those are some of the things that some people look at in a different light, but it's what we do. It's part of what we do every day. Helping people with addiction, helping people with mental health issues. And those are great challenges. Those are going to be the challenges of the next couple of years more so, because of what the state has done, what is happening on that level, and that becomes even more difficult for us to deal with. So when we look at those challenges, when we look at those opportunities, we have to kind of figure a way to balance them. And it's not always easy. But, in looking ahead at what we have to offer people, and again, we don't want people on assistance for life. It's not the goal. It's never been the goal. But there are some that need a little more help than others. But, when we do things such as Chobani. Now, Chobani is an interesting company. They have a great deal they do a great deal in working with all levels and areas of people, all demographics. You might have saw a story on the news today in which they're putting thousands of boxes together of food for people who won't have a meal, this Thanksgiving or even during the month. But they're a company that is committed to Rome, New York now, in Oneida County. And they're committed because they came here and they saw what we were able to do. And I take a lot of pride in that, because I think, when we show our community off, it does shine. It shines in our neighborhoods, it shines in what we do as a community, it shines in how we respond to tragedy, like the tornado, like things that happened in this community, and that everybody comes and responds to it. And Chobani is an interesting piece. They are growing. We have another meeting today, this afternoon, with the mayor and his staff as well, and mine, to kind of look at more of their growth, because every day they're getting bigger on that site, and it's getting harder to figure out how we're going to fit everything. But those are great problems to have. 1,000 employees, and they want that in the next 2 years. That's pretty remarkable for them to look at Rome, New York, to look at Oneida County, invest $1.4 billion in a facility, as Cindy said, will be the largest natural food facility in the nation. That's happening here. But those things don't happen just by chance. They happen because of hard work, because of collaboration, because of people working together. The same thing Wolf Street did. And yeah, Wolf Street had a little bubble, but every industry does, and we've seen that on the electric vehicle side of things. But Wolf Street is doing great. They're hiring more people every day. This plant in Marcy is their most productive in the world right now. And then there are all the other employers. Not to forget all of our small businesses. Not to forget companies that have been here a long time, like Riviera, like Indian. New companies that have sprouted up. Our goal is not to forget the legacy companies that we've had, or that we have, and to keep growing them. So I know I'm jumping a little bit, but I'm trying to just paint the picture of why we're in the position we are. It's because we solidified our finances so we could invest in better roads, in bridges, in infrastructure, in water, in sewer, in electrical. That's what, everybody has, from my economic development days, everybody has land. Land is a large, believe it or not, still a large commodity out there. Everybody has it. Every community has land. Every community has acres. Hundreds of acres. The Triangle site and the golf course in Griffiths, about 320 acres, maybe all total, of usable space. Everybody has that. They don't have, all of them, is the ability to get water, to get sewer, to get electrical, to get the infrastructure done because they're willing to do it. The interesting thing with Chobani when you talk about them is no money's going into that business, it's going into the site. So they can build the building, so they can bring the jobs, so they can bring the pieces in. And we've done that in other places as well. So I'm looking ahead, and again, looking at where we are, where we were 20 years ago. It was a little dark, trying to figure out what was going to be Oneida County. If I had to describe Oneida County in 2005, or even 2000, it was a little bit difficult because you had a lot of moving parts. More moving out than moving in. And if you look at the last 20 years of growth and what we've done between the two cities, and remember, as the cities go, and that's my message to the towns all the time, as the cities go, the county goes. If the cities aren't strong, the county's not strong. So in that, that partnership has to be strong regardless of who's in. We have to work together, we have to look at the big picture and figure out how we can move together. And I think we've done that. We've done that in Rome, we've done it in Utica, we've done it in the towns. I have to be cognizant all the time of every aspect of this county, which, there's, but the people are the same. They all have the same goal in mind. They want a better community, they want a better neighborhood. They want more done so that more people live there, work there, and, can play there. And, we've done that. We have a Main Street program that's invested in 18 communities to help them with their streetscapes, to make them look better. Lighting, sidewalks, facades, whatever we can do. That is what brings people in. That is what keeps people here. And, our next challenge with Chobani, with Wolfspeed, with WIN, with Rome Health, because those are challenges. Those are jobs that need to be filled. Continuously. We need a workforce of the future. We need housing. Our next big project is housing. We need more houses. We need more houses in Rome. We need more houses in Utica. We need more houses in the town. We recently completed a study that outlined that in the next 5 years, we need a little over 6,000 new housing units. That's a big number. And the estimate on the study says about 4,000 of those single-family homes, and about the other 2,000, townhouse-type apartments that, similar to what Air City Lofts is at Griffiths. So those are the challenges that we have facing us. But I look at those as great opportunities. I think that, again, if you had to go back in time and look and see what did Oneida County look like, what's it look like today? I mean, you're in a place, too, that saw massive reinvestment. That doesn't happen by chance. And again, it wasn't done with government assistance and from us. It was done because there was another entity that believed that there's still growth here. There's still opportunity here. There's still more available to get done here. So I'm glad to take some questions, but I just wanted to give you a snapshot. I could talk all day, as you can see, because I love what I do. I love the pieces that we've been able to put together. And I like what I see for the future. I really believe that we can take this to another level that no one would imagine 10 or 15 or even 20 or 30 years ago. And I mentioned some of those places that left in the 90s. You know, they thought they went down south for a better, for what they thought was a better place and better workforce, and they didn't get it. Some of them closed. Some of them didn't. Some of them kind of came back in a different way. And that's what the message is. The message is, you know, we're open for business. But more importantly, we take care of our people. We take care of them every day. Yes, we have our challenges. Yes, there are a lot of struggles on the state government side and certainly on the federal side today as we see what's happening. But I always try to keep my eye on the ball, and my eye is on, you know, that. Now, I know it's not political speech, but all politics is local, and I mean, our governments, you know, I mean, the other point is, while we deliver a lot of programs for the state, I can't wake up every day and think about what's the state going to do. I have to think about what I'm going to do and what we're going to do as a county government. We have great leadership. The other thing is, you know, we have great partners in all levels of government. We get along better than they do, certainly in Washington, which doesn't say much, but we do. But with all that, I mean, I'm just proud of what we've been able to accomplish. I think there's more to get done. I think we're on the cusp of some really great things. I think I look at Griffiths, I see the opportunity. I look at, you know, the fact that we were able to do a lot of those things, you know, that we talked about, the building, whether it was Wynn, whether it was Nexus, whether it was Wolfspeed. Those were all done during a pandemic in which hundreds of projects around the country were shut down. We didn't. We kept them going. And we kept them going in a way. I had to meet with all of the different trades and say, okay, today you're going to work at Wynn, tomorrow you work in Rome, Thursday you're working, or Friday you're working in Marcy, and figure out how everybody can, and then back to Utica and do the circle again, so that all of these things get done. When you bring people together like that, they see the big picture and they see what is at the end of it. They're great things. Again, I could go on. Love to take questions. I want to first off thank you for allowing me this great opportunity today to come and talk to you. Thank you. Yeah, Carl over here. Go ahead. Got a microphone.
Anyway, and you mentioned so many good things about Oneida County with land, transportation. Has there any thought been for the meat packing place? Now, don't get excited, ladies. I'm not saying it's going to be on Dominic Street, but we have so much land. We have animals. We have to butcher for food. We have an MVCC culinary. You have the casino that uses a lot of food. I think it needs to be revisited. I don't know. Any thought in that?
Well, I mean, we've always had those operations in Oneida County, particularly more on the eastern side of things. Yeah, it hasn't come up recently, so I'm not going to say anything. We thought about it, we haven't. I mean, but if it does, I mean, look, I'm open to opportunity, as I said. I think anything that can generate, you know, jobs, but more importantly, you know, products that we need. And yes, I mean, that's where, you know, I mean, Chobani is a big food piece. I mean, we have, you know, I didn't talk about how much we've invested in farmers markets, and how that's become a big part of the tourism, of agritourism in this county. And, you know, those things can be, you know, can be a piece of it. So it's not something that I throw away. I just haven't heard recently about it. Yep.
I can use my teacher voice.
First of all, Anthony, I just want to say thank you for everything that you've done for our county. I know you spend a lot of time out there and you don't get thanked a lot, so really appreciate it. My question really comes from something that's really in my heart, and that's the education space. And I know Vision 2020 was something that the county got involved in, and this group, having a lot of retired teachers, understands the role that the education department and local school boards have. But you mentioned workforce. I just think there's more that we could be doing as a community, and I mean all of us, not just you, to integrate the high school we have that sits right in the middle of Griffiths Park with all of these great opportunities that our students could be learning for immediate jobs out of high school. Not everyone's going to go to college, as we know, and the need to kind of develop those. Do you have any thoughts, or is there any discussion about what we could be doing for that?
No, absolutely. One of the things I didn't mention in all of the pieces of things that county government does is, MVCC is a county function, in essence. We are a sponsor. We provide a third of their operating budget. So in that, we're invested in MVCC. We're in the process of building a new science and technology building on the Utica campus. We've invested $30+ million in the Rome campus over the last few years. So the connections there are essential. And, not just because of Chobani, but in all of these pieces that we have done, yes, workforce is essential. And one of the things that MVCC has been very successful working with the high schools are the students that are achieving and earning college credits. And, that's made a big difference in students going on and only having to do 3 years rather than 4, or even in some cases 2 rather than 4. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is we've been talking more, and we have new superintendents on both ends in the big cities and even on some of the others. But we've been talking with them about workforce development, which is a big piece of everything we do. And recognizing that everybody, and I've always known this because even before I was with Empire State Development and Economic Development, I was with the Department of Labor for 6 years. I've been in a few places. But, when we know that that's important, that connection is. Some months ago, I sponsored with MVCC a bus tour, basically, of high school guidance counselors to go visit, trying to think how many manufacturers in the county. Because if they don't see it, the students won't see it. And so it's not just about connecting the students, it's connecting the educators with it. It's connecting those guidance counselors with it. And we have to do a better job of that. And I say we, I'm not just saying the schools, it's us too. Because we want them to see what is out there and what we're investing in and what opportunities are there. They have to see them, but they have to see them up close. You can't see them from a distance. They have to understand, what job opportunities are available. And I think we're doing more of that. We're about to embark on a major marketing campaign for Chobani, for every company in Oneida County. We're not just limiting it to, because we do have to find 1,000 employees for that. But there are other employers that need more. The Oneida Indian Nation is undergoing an expansion. They need another 300, 350 employees by the end of 26. We have great opportunities here. And those are great paying jobs. And even Chobani is a great paying job. And it doesn't require a 4-year degree or even a 2-year degree in some areas. But, we are doing more with that. We have to do more. And, you're gonna see more of that aspect over the next few months. Mary?
I want to say that my grandson graduated from college, was offered a job on the base, and has purchased a house in Bronx.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, so how did he get here and how did he get there? I have a deep concern, and I don't know if this is under your purview. Our train station is deplorable. It's beautiful when you walk in, but the rest of it is terrible. And I have found as a widow that the train is a wonderful way to travel. But I'm not so safe when my neighbor, who has a son who's a Rome policeman,
come to pick me up because he's worried about my safety. Okay?
First of all, yeah,
And so I don't want, I don't know if it's you.
it's not. I mean, and I'm not passing. I've got my own train station. We own Union Station. The county owns Union Station. We are the owner of that. We took that over long before I was county executive. We've invested in it. And I'm not casting any pieces on the Rome station. I mean, part of the problem, though, I have too, and even in Utica, even at the station, is the availability of those trains. There used to be a lot more. And, you know, that, I mean, I think, you know, there's 2 points to it. We have to show that there is the need, you know, for more stops in Utica and Rome. You know, when I worked for the state, and I'm going back into the 90s, and I worked in, as I said, Department of Labor, then Empire State Development. I did a lot of work in New York City. And I loved taking the train all the time. And I used to even, you know, once in a while, they, you know, because I was so frequent on the trains, the conductors knew me and he'd say, "Want me to drop you off in Rome?" And I was like, "That'd be great if you could." So I know that. But, you know, I think part of it is getting more stops so that, you know, and then, you know, I mean, obviously, I think the train station's owned by the city or maybe, you know, in that regard. So, you know, I know it is expensive. And you know, you don't want to build it if I mean, you don't want to invest in it if there's not going to be enough activity. And I think that's the other question, just to be fair. But we, you know, and because I can tell you, Union Station costs a lot to operate. I can tell you that much. Well, you go ahead. You pick.
Here we go. How about that?
Yes, I'm so glad that you mentioned the need for housing and it's recognized. In the past, I'm going to say 2 weeks, I think I've had 4 conversations with widows and looking for middle income housing. We have some very nice and some good low income and upper income, but the middle income, particularly then as someone is widowed, they're losing another Social Security check. And so those have been some very recent conversations.
No, and I think, you know, some of what we've been looking at and obviously recognizing that that is an issue. And I know people get hung up, and there's a discussion going on in one of the other towns right now about housing, about whether it's low income or whether it's mid income or whether it's high income or whatever. And part of the issue is it could be all of it. It could be all of the above. And it shouldn't cast a shadow on the fact that it's lower income because there are seniors, there are working families that are in the lower end of that. You know, I look at, you know, if my parents were here today, where they would fall in that category. So we do need more of that. And that's why when I talk about housing, I'm talking about all housing. And those housing units that are necessary, you know, incorporate all that. And we're talking, and part of the way we do that is obviously you have to incentivize builders to do that so that there are, you know, those benefits in which they can build the type of housing that people need.
Has there been any consideration or reconsideration about using Griffiths as a conference center, a place where people, with multitudinous people that come for activities to stay at? We have mountains, we have a lake. We have a lake. I don't know what it is.
I was wondering if that was going to come up. I meant the water.
We have so much to offer. We have all that area of that used to be houses that we could turn into a conference center.
Yeah, I think a couple things. I think, you know, conference centers are very hard. I mean, they're very expensive. But I think what, you know, when I talked about my vision for the hangars at Griffiths for, you know, the multi-use, I think that would also allow for event space. So meetings, conferences, things like that. But not, you know, don't want to get, and as a county, we shouldn't be in competition with places like this or with other entities. We do need more hotels. I can tell you that. If what I want to do at Griffiths is successful or can be done, it's going to need other amenities attached to it. And one of them is a hotel. Because we've seen that with Nexus. We need another hotel in Utica. And there's 5 of them within the radius of Nexus that can't even handle what comes in on a weekend, in addition to what, for that place, in addition to what comes in normally. So there are considerations of that, but not to compete with other entities.
Hi, I'd like to speak a little bit more about the housing issue. Before I came this morning, I looked to see how many affordable apartments there were in the Utica area. There are 7 apartments available in Utica right now for under $1,000. They are 1 bedrooms. If you get to a 2-bedroom apartment, you're looking $1,500 to $2,000. That is not affordable housing for the working man and the people who provide service for all of us in the county. We need all housing, I agree, especially to grow, but we need affordable housing in this county.
And I can't agree with you anymore. And the point I make with that is that when you start getting below those levels, neighborhoods start, well, they start complaining because, I mean, look, I'm dealing with one right now, which I supported a housing project in the town of Deerfield, for full disclosure, in which, you know, people are arguing that it shouldn't go there. Where should it go? I mean, if we need housing for seniors, for working people, for low income too, I mean, in that regard. I mean, not everybody makes $100,000 a year. Not everybody makes $50,000 a year. And there are families that are making less than that with 2 and 3 children. And they should not be discriminated against because of that. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. But when you start mentioning those numbers going down, people automatically think that it's going to be subsidized housing that is not acceptable. And that becomes the problem. And that's what we're trying to get beyond. Doing my best.
Hi, I followed some situations in larger cities such as Salt Lake City, Utah, and smaller cities such as Saratoga Springs, where they have developed compassionate programs for shelter, housing, and food for the homeless. And in both of those situations, their homeless populations have significantly increased. What is like our position and our plan, and where do we stand with the homeless in our county?
Increased or decreased?
I'm asking, they have increased after implementing the compassionate programs. Their homeless populations have increased. So it's kind of, you want to be compassionate, where are we, and what is our plan for the homeless?
So, well, the plan for the homeless, actually, and I wish I had the answer for that as someone who deals with it, as the only real level of government that deals with homeless, because that's another point. While I understand the cities have responsibilities in towns, but they're more about policing that. We're about taking care of that. You know, last year, you know, during the cold winter, I opened up the county building as a shelter. Nobody ever did that. Both of them. I did it in Rome, I did it in Utica. And, you know, for people to come in from the cold. We have a big homeless problem. But the homeless problem that we're dealing with is centered around mental health issues and addiction. And many times those go together. We are opening up a stabilization center in Utica. I hope to do one in Rome in the near future, which would provide for 24-hour care in trying to get these people into a system. You know, we still deal every day, I mean, there's a number for you. Every day, we are housing anywhere between 150 and 200 people in shelters or hotels a night. Think about that, 150 a night in various hotels or various shelters. You know, and there are differences though. There are those warming centers that are not shelters. So you've got to kind of find that balance. And the homeless problem is created from, you know, again, the lack of mental health system, you know, beds. That's number one. You know, if we could get that, you know, squared away, we will. The other point is, yeah, I'll tell another story. I mean, we had a tent city that popped up in Utica a while back, and we had to shut it down because of public health concerns. in the dozen people that were there, 8 of them had apartments. They chose to be on the street. I mean, that's what we're dealing with. So it's a very complex and very, intense kind of scenario. I wish I had, if I had the answer, I wouldn't be standing here probably right now, but I know it's.
Yes, this relates to the housing issue and the wonderful goals that you have for the county. And it has to do with the high cost of energy, which will be increasing. I saw the reports in the paper that they're predicting because of the weather, the winter, that the price of your energy will go up maybe even 10%. But this also is going to affect the housing industry and the commercial industry. If everything has to go electric, we may even have more people that lose their housing because they can't afford to pay their electric. And this is a state mandated law, but there are also state mandated things going on that contribute to crime, like the catch and release program. That's a fishing term, but it's like the no bail. And so what does, you're kind of like tied. So I'm just wondering what can be done? What can we even do to help with this?
So I think, when you mentioned, the state, the mandated side of things, and, the state. So 90% of our budget is mandated, what I have to, the services I have to deliver. And think about that, 90% of a $560 million budget. So that's one piece. The concerns about, I do believe at some point the concerns about the electric piece that the governor has put in place as an order or mandate or whatever is going to get challenged somewhere. It has to. And whether it's a joint challenge by counties and by developers, I think in total, I think everybody's kind of waiting to see what happens in the next, in the next cycle and see where that goes. But I would agree that would make, if everything has to be, natural gas is and has been, successful. And are there concerns? Well, the electric doesn't have concerns. We all face that. So there are things that are in place right now, or in play right now that would try to look at that. I think this goes back to, as someone who runs a local government, the ability of us running our own government has to be acknowledged. And New York State, over the last few years, has been taking it away from us. And so we've got to get it back. So I know we have time.
One more question, then we got to stop.
One more.
Right here.
Thank you. Ditto to all your accomplishments. Really appreciate it. I just wondered, you said that aviation industry might not work, but what would happen to the runways eventually?
And let me clarify that. Griffiths is not closing. And the airport, I'm not talking about the airport itself. I'm talking about, we had invested in those hangars for airplane maintenance and restoration companies that have failed. So that's where I look at that part of the aviation thing. When I look at aviation in the bigger picture, we're still having hundreds of planes. I know that people don't see them, but hundreds of planes that land during the week. You hear them. They do. They land during the week. There's still maneuvers by the military. There's still, we still house, I want to say, between our hangars of private planes and corporate jets. Even Steve Wynn had his plane there a while, for a while. 60 or 70, aircraft that are still there and are housed there. And, with the lab, with all the other pieces, all of that staying. My point is investing in companies for those hangars that just, I've had 5 of them that didn't work, and I think that's enough. I think that's enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you again, Mr. Vicente, for informing us and enlightening us about what's going on in this county and what you hope to achieve in the very near future. Next week, we have a drama program chaired by Dennis Linsky. It's also a guest privilege, so please feel free to bring someone that you think would enjoy a little bit of fun and laughter. And I'd like to thank Mr. Vicente. He is donating his honorarium back to our scholarship fund. May I have a motion to adjourn? Marge Palmer. Second, Deb Mislinski. All in favor? Meeting is adjourned.